My name is Nathan Martinez, and I'm a recent graduate of Georgia Southern University. So about 2 years ago, I went to a New Year's conference. God had completely wrecked everything that I wanted to do with my life. And so I ended up having a conversation with somebody on staff, and she asked me, well, what is it you like to do? What is it that you are passionate about? And through that conversation, it really ended up being her pointing me into the direction of full-time ministry. Flash forward to about a year later on that summer leadership project. That morning, the verse of the day was the Great Commission. And Jesus says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations. It sounded like Jesus saying, Nathan, you go make disciples of all nations. And so from then on, I thought, man, I want to do full-time ministry among college students, but I also want to be a cross-cultural missionary. And I want to do this among the nations for the glory of God. And I was like, man, well, how can I do that? How can I pursue that? One of the guys on staff had said to me, Nathan, well, you want to do college ministry and you want to go abroad, COLEAD is something that you should check out. All I wanted was to marry my desires of how can I go abroad, do cultural ministry among college students, and have this count for school, and these all ended up becoming one in the form of COLEAD. The application was pretty straightforward. How did you come to Christ? What do you believe about these things? How do you think that God is calling you towards this avenue? And then through there was a series of tests and personality assessments and some interviews. One of the tests I remember was basically, can you do well in a cross-cultural context for an extended amount of time? I could see clearly that this was something that I had been designed for. And through the process is one big, are you called to this? And can you do this well? And I was blown away by the staff's helpfulness in this. I had so many questions and really it was just one big, man, is this something that I should be doing? And throughout the whole time they were calling me, emailing me, and it was one big investment that I saw of them into me. It took about 4.5 months, I want to say, and so I applied in January. By May, we knew that I was going to Australia. Frustrating part for me during the application and interview process was I was a senior in school, and I wasn't sure what it was going to be that I would do after I graduated. Where would I go? Who would I see? And so I'm looking at other options, like should I do this, or is this over here a possibility? And so throughout the process, I'm like, God, is this what you would have me do? Is this what you would have me to pursue after college? And so it's frustrating for me, the waiting time. But it's really cool to see that though I'd be frustrated in my waiting, the Lord would grant to me patience. And I could say, you know, God, I don't have this under control and I can't see the end of the road, but you can, and I would rely on Him throughout that time. I decided on a lead location in a specific way. So I had worked in Orlando, Florida, before, and I ended up having a lot of friends who were from Australia and New Zealand. And when the list came up on the website of where you can go and what location you can be sent to, Australia was the one that came up, and I said, that's where I want to go. That's the one. That's it for me. And from that point on, it was a series of green lights where God would just reveal to me through His Word or through counsel or even in prayer of ways in which I knew and was affirming that Australia was the place in which God was calling me to go to. The truth is, we should go at this with a hands-open mentality. God, I want to go. Here I am. Send me. And our hope should be that, man, even if I don't get the first pick that I want to go to, I should still be willing to say, yes, Lord, I will worship you and I will share your gospel in any country that you would send me to. So my word of advice for people who are considering applying for LEAD, do it. Just do it. See if this is a door that God would have open for you. And if not, then so be it. Go another direction. Pray and seek counsel and find it in God's Word to say, is this something that God would be calling me to do for 2 years? In His Word, He says to make disciples of all nations. You know, and we know that from Genesis to Revelation, it's one big story of God revealing Himself to the whole of the world. And so if I take that seriously and I say, man, He has called me specifically to the nations, then why not consider going with Campus Outreach and doing this in a strategic location on the college campus? We are responsible for having our own salary, and so we ask the church and we ask family and friends, hey, would you partner with me in ministry that I might go and share the gospel in these places? And this is something where it's like, God, I'm required to raise $3,500 per month. I will not go unless you move. You have to provide for me. Paul says, and my God will supply every need of yours according to His riches and glory in Christ Jesus. And so seeing God's provision through this time has allowed me to rely on Him like I have never before, and to see His grace and how undeserving I am to be a part of His mission, though He not need me, and yet He would send me anyway. One crazy, awesome story that God has done through this support raising process is I went to apply for a passport and I actually didn't have the money. And so the lady sat there and she was like, well, do you have the money? I said, no, I don't. I'm sorry, I can get it to you. And she said, well, why are you going to Australia? And I said to her, well, I believe that God has called me to full-time ministry abroad in this time. And I'm going to raise up young men in Christ. And she looked at me and she said, you know what? You're going to do the Lord's work. And she sat there and she herself paid for it. The lady in the office paid for it, that I would have a passport to go. And that was for me another affirmation of God saying, yeah, I want you to be in Australia. I want you to go do full-time ministry. And it was through her that he decided to provide for me in an awesome way where I had to say, God, you did that and you received the glory for that happening. It was really awesome. The biggest thing that God has taught me through this time is I can rely on him. I can rely on him. And that he answers prayers. And so it's one big, huge, Daddy, would you provide for me? I need you to do this. I cannot do this on my own. I have to rely on you. And him saying, yeah, I'm going to provide. I'm going to grant to you to go. I heard one guy say once, if it's God's will, it's his bill. And if that's the case, then so be it. He's going to provide for his children to go into all the world and accomplish his mission for his glory.